But now to the Netherlands, keeping a close eye there as President Donald Trump is expected to be wheels down any moment now for a NATO summit. His visit comes during a crucial ceasefire agreement between Israel and Iran. The message from the president on that is this: the ceasefire is now in effect. It appears to be holding after it seemed to stall just hours after the president announced the deal. So let's break down what Israel says happened. Shortly before the ceasefire went into effect, they say Iran launched a barrage of missiles in the southern city of Beersheba, killing 4 people and wounding about 20 others. After the ceasefire officially started, they say Iran unloaded another set of missiles, putting them in clear violation of the agreement. In response to that, Israel then retaliated by destroying a radar array near Tehran. Iran denies any violation. Meanwhile, here in the U.S., President Trump was quick to say the deal after a conversation with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. After that direct conversation, Netanyahu says Israel refrained from further attacks. Prior to that call, though, the president expressed his frustration. Listen.
I think they both violated it. I don't think I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, OK, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. We basically have 2 countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
We have got team coverage. Standing by for us over in Washington, D.C. is CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordis. But first, let's go live to the ground in Iraq, where we find CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams. Holly, thanks for your time once again today. Given the back and forth that we've seen today, is this ceasefire actually guaranteed to hold?
Hey there, Mugo. No, I don't think it's guaranteed at all. In fact, it looks fairly precarious, doesn't it? You have Israel alleging ceasefire violations and then retaliating, Iran denying those ceasefire violations. Some very harsh language from President Trump there for both sides. It is clearly very fragile, but there's also enormous pressure being exerted by the US to try to make it stick.
And then there have been a lot of headlines coming from the region just over the weekend. So much has happened. Can you walk us through the biggest developments and also explain how we got here?
Yeah, Mugo, it's been a complex time in the Middle East, and this is a complex part of the world. The US entered the conflict over the weekend by bombing 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Iran clearly felt compelled to respond, perhaps because to do otherwise in this region would look weak. But the fact is that Iran is weakened by 11 days of war with Israel. And when the response came, it was actually fairly minimal. President Trump said that Iran fired 14 missiles at the Al Udeid air base in Qatar. That's the biggest US military base here in the Middle East, with several thousand American troops. He said 13 of those missiles were intercepted, shot down, and 1 was allowed to land harmlessly. He also said that Iran had given advance warning. Now that looks like a kind of face-saving or even performative retaliation. And then shortly afterwards, Iran agreed to a ceasefire.
And Holly, in light of all this, it's important to ask what comes next. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, well, clearly diplomatic wheels are turning, but what are the possibilities here? Firstly, yeah, the ceasefire could break down and then we return to war between Iran and Israel. If the ceasefire holds, I guess there are a few possibilities. One, I guess Iran could kind of capitulate and give up its nuclear program, or at least curtail it. That's pretty clearly what President Trump is hoping for. On the other hand, the Iranians could look at the last few days being attacked by Israel, bombed by the US, and take from that they need to better defend their country and think to themselves, well, actually, we're now more motivated to produce nuclear weapons. And of course, Mugo, they could do both. They could, publicly pursue a diplomatic solution and secretly try to rebuild their nuclear program. A nuclear program, by the way, that they've always maintained is only for civilian purposes.
Of course, time will tell. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams live for us in Iraq. Thank you once again for your time today. Now over to the White House and CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordis. Nancy, thank you for your time. We know the pressure is on from the president. He's calling out both Israel and Iran. What else did he have to say today?
Well, Mugo, after that initial expression of anger this morning at both Iran and Israel, the president is now expressing optimism that a ceasefire has taken hold and is going to remain in place, and that this war between Israel and Iran is in fact going to end. He added that Iran will not be able to reinitiate its nuclear program, but he expressed hope that Iran would be able to become a great trading nation, in his words. Even said that perhaps in the future countries like the U.S. would be purchasing oil from Iran once again.
Nancy, all of that considered, the president also sounded off today on the possibility of more Iranian retaliation after the U.S. attacked multiple nuclear sites over the weekend. So what was his message there?
He said that basically Iran, in his words, needed to get it out of its system. In other words, after the U.S. mounted this massive attack on Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend, Iran had to do something in response. But it turned out to be, as Holly just described, more of a face-saving measure. The Iranians gave plenty of notice in advance that this was going to happen, so the Qataris and the Americans were ready for it, and they fired off about a dozen missiles that the U.S. was easily able to intercept, and there were no casualties. So basically, the president said he was glad that Iran had given the U.S. a heads up, and that he hopes that now the two sides can pursue peace, and said he doesn't anticipate any further military action by the U.S., especially if the ceasefire holds.
And Nancy, we know the president is meeting face-to-face with European allies today. There's still a lot of conflicts out there that have not been resolved just yet. So what exactly is his goal there?
Right. I mean, with all the attention focused on the Middle East, we really haven't been talking as much about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine and the flailing attempts to engineer some sort of ceasefire there. To the contrary, Russia is really pounding the Ukrainian border, and that is what a lot of these NATO leaders want to talk about in The Hague, in the Netherlands. And so President Trump said, as he was heading there today, that he's going to switch gears and try to solve a lot of other problems. And of course, this is something that's of great concern to leaders from Europe, because this is right there on their borders. And so that's going to be up for discussion. But remember that there are a lot of European leaders who are much more firmly in the Ukrainian camp than the president tends to be. So we'll see whether they're able to make any headway on that issue over the next 24 hours.
We shall wait and see. Nancy Cordis at the White House for us. Thank you for your time today. I know we'll come back to you shortly, because just minutes ago, we got a gaggle of the president on Air Force One taking questions from reporters. So let's listen to what he had to say.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you.
Iranian sleeper cells in the United States.
Biden led a lot of supercells, and Biden was an incompetent president, had no idea what he was doing. He hardly ever signed a document. Other people signed documents for him with the auto pen. It was gross incompetence. And among everything else, he let a lot of supercells in, many from Iran. But hopefully we'll take care of them. What Biden did to this country should never be forgotten.
Sir, do you think you'll get the Nobel Peace Prize now?
All right, so Nancy, he didn't really say much at that moment there in that conversation with reporters, because he didn't take a lot of questions. But did anything stand out to you from his comments?
Right. So he was asked about the possibility that Iran could retaliate further, not just on a U.S. military base the way that we saw yesterday, but perhaps with would-be terrorists or sleeper cells here in the United States. And he went on to say a couple of things in response that aren't substantiated. First of all, he said that his predecessor, President Biden, had let in a lot of Iranian sleeper cells. There's no evidence that that is the case. And then he said that that Biden let his staffers sign a whole bunch of things with an auto pen. Again, not much evidence of that either. But nevertheless, this is a president who tends to criticize his predecessor when he has the opportunity, and that's what he was doing on Air Force One as well. I can tell you more broadly that because of the way that things have played out over the past 24, 48 hours, it does appear that Homeland Security officials are a little bit less concerned now that there will be some kind of sleeper cell here in the United States that is activated, especially after that Iranian response that appeared aimed at ratcheting down the tension with the U.S. and not building it up.
All right. CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordis, as always, we appreciate your reporting and your insight. Thank you so much.